This time we're going to go into our largest debt, which is typically our mortgage. Right? Compound interest, because you're paying it over a long period of time. And our goal is to get to a point where you either own the house or Cafe Cadenza owns the house. One or the other. Because the individual is part of the community is part of the individual. So, looking at a $250,000 loan, right, for your house. Your payments at 7% interest. For 25 years, we're looking at 17, let's just call it 1,800. At the end of all that, you're going to pay, if you just make these minimum payments for the next 25 years, you will have paid $280,000 in interest. Right? And then the loan amount was only $250,000 as the principal. You've paid more than double. And that's not fun. No. Not fun at all.
We could almost buy, we could buy another
You
house.
could buy 2 houses in that time, right? But instead we're getting ripped off hard. So, what do we plan to do about that? Well, typically mortgages come into 5-year or 10-year terms. But it's pretty typical people take on a 5-year term. Maybe it's like a fixed term, right? And so our goal actually would be to pay it off in that 5 years. You'll still pay interest, but not nearly this much. If you can pay it in 1/5 of the time, you'll be saving so much on interest up front. So what we're going to do is we need to start paying down the principal. Because usually a majority of your payment, and this isn't a result of the banks trying to really screw you over, it is simply a matter of most of the interest is up front, but as you pay down the principal, your interest payments are reduced. So typically the very first payment here of the month, your interest is probably going to be like, I don't know, $1,600 is going to go towards interest, and then $200 towards the principal. And it's simply just like the way the compound interest works and the way they try to structure it equally over time. So when it's 7% interest, they're calculating it's per year, but then they mark it down like, per day or say per month. And because we're paying so low towards the principal early on, you can see how this $1,600 interest is going to start adding up. The next payment will probably be a little less. It'll probably be reduced to like $1,550, and then you'll pay $250 towards the principal. And it'll gradually, the graph looks like this. You pay mostly interest up front. Right? So your interest payments will be like this, and then your interest will eventually go down there. And then your payments towards the principal will start to go like this, right? So this being the principal, and this being the interest. We want to start shaving down as much of this interest as possible by adding payments in here to really bring up that principal. So what we're going to do is kind of like back with the line of credit. So we got a line of credit. Now this can be done in a couple ways. This is just if you're doing this solo, right? So if you can, you do the whole paycheck parking thing where we start saying, okay, you're typically on a 5-year fixed term, you're allowed once per year to do a lump sum payment towards the principal without a penalty. And usually it could be to a max of 20%, because basically they're saying if you can, over 5 years, 20% each year, you'll have paid off the whole thing, right? So they're locking you into that. But let's take that line of credit, and let's say I have, I don't know, 15,000 like we had before, 15,000 on the line of credit. And we do the whole paycheck parking thing. Now, granted, we want to make sure we have good cash flow, right? You can't be like in the negative. You have to be in the positive. Otherwise, this thing won't work. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a lump sum, maybe max it out, maybe not. Maybe only take out 10,000 just so that we're not, breaking the bank and going like the full amount. But we'll just take out 10K. We'll throw that 10K onto this $250,000 loan, right? And that, while it may not reduce our payments, right? The payments will still be $1,800 per month. More now is going towards the principal and less is going towards the interest. Now, granted, you're saying, well, you're just trading one loan for another, right? This loan is probably going to be around the same interest as your mortgage. So, but remember, it's the numbers, right? Like we're looking at $250,000 and we want to start reducing that interest. And then on top of it, with our paycheck parking, so if we paycheck park it, which basically means, like I said, if I had $4,000 at the end of the month, whenever I get paid, $4,000 cuts this off, right? I make a payment. $4,000. But then, I have expenses, so then you're going to end up with that same thing where it goes down, but then it goes up again. It'll go down, but then it'll go up again, down, up again, down. And over time, depending on your cash flow, it should get back down to zero by the end of the year. So, but anyways, what you've done now, though, because you put the $10,000 up front, you've now reduced the amount of interest you've paid, and we're making progress towards paying that down. All right? But even more effective than that, which is what I want the Panda Trust to do, and it doesn't even have to be a formal thing, but if we all agreed and we all trust each other as members, right? So we're all members, we have trust, we can pool our collective resources, and we don't even necessarily need all the cash. So what could end up happening is I've got $15,000 in a line of credit. Somebody else has $25,000. Somebody else has $50,000 that they can loan, right? And these will be all considered like personal loans from each member that will have to get paid back. But wouldn't it be great if we combined all that? So what are we looking at? We've got 30, 40, 90. So we've got a total of $90,000, right? That'll take a huge chunk out of that. And that money can be going back, well, to pay us down or whatever. But if we're following this flow, we should be paying it down a lot sooner, right? Remember, back with the timing, we'll be reducing our interest because we're going to have periods where we dumped our whole paycheck. So let's say we put our whole paycheck into the line of credit on the first of the month, right? And so we paid it down by some amount. So it went from, say, 90 to collectively we brought it down maybe 15,000 or something. And now we're at 75? Mm-hmm. So we're at 75K. It'll stay at 75K until maybe you have to start taking money out to pay closer to the end of the month. So let's say the 20th. So for 20 days or almost 3 weeks, we're not paying the interest of this gap of 15,000, right? No interest. We're only paying the interest on what is currently outstanding. But then maybe we need to jump back because, we have expenses to pay, so it goes back up to 80,000, which is fine. But then we keep gradually bringing it down over time. Now, this may be a hard concept to grasp, but when you do it back to the second part of this debt repair, if you practice that on a small scale, you'll really understand how it does scale up with larger numbers. So I would say to build confidence, I would do this on a small scale first before you even try to attempt to tackle that. Ideally, if we can have a total collective, if the members can have a total of your remaining balance of 250, what we should do as a group is we should pay this whole thing down ourselves as a group, right? And then that person can keep making their payments, but now those payments can go back into the loan that we did to pay down that loan. But now the loan is in our hands instead of wherever you first got that mortgage. Does that make sense?
Makes sense.
So that's what I want to do with that. Now, whether this is a combination of cash and loans or all cash, like either way, like let's say even just taking somebody who wanted to be an investor and all they did was say, hey, we just want you to pay this down in cash, and instead of us paying the bank, we just pay you. Now you're the bank, right? So let's say you're sitting on 250K and your money, right?
Everybody is.
Because everybody is. But there are some people out there, and perhaps some people that believe in what we're trying to build. And what most people are looking for is a return on their investment. So if somebody has 250 in savings or wherever their investments are, we could ask, hey, would it be possible for you to take that investment amount, throw it here to us, but you're not giving it to us. You're going to be getting the same rate of return that this bank would have gotten, except now you're getting it, right? And then not only are you making the money back plus interest, you know you're also serving the community, right? And that we only need to go to you now. But remember, this all, at the end of the day, trust. None of this is possible if we can't trust each other with money, right? So this is kind of the last part of the debt repair, because this is usually what is hanging on most people. Even after they pay off all their credit cards and everything, they're still got a mortgage. So if we can really tackle down this and make it so that people are owning their own properties and not having to pay these crazy mortgage payments anymore, that's $1,800 a month that now is cash flow. And that cash flow, depending on how dedicated you are to Cafe Cadenza, could be going right back into the bank. We can start making more investments then.